Hello everyone and welcome to another Taco Tuesday. It is 8th Taco Tuesday. I hope you guys are having an awesome Tuesday, and I hope you guys had an awesome weekend. Early shout outs to Paula and Diane over there in the Philippines for coming in early. And for those of you who would like to ask questions, you guys can write them right now if you want to, or anytime during the talk, just start typing them down. And we'll definitely put you guys in the queue for all the questions. Cool. So today it is Taco Tuesday. So what does that mean? What am I drinking today? I already had 2 coffees, so coffee wasn't good for me today. So I'm having just a regular honey lime juice. And it's got real lime in here too, so it's really good. All right, so it is September 22nd. It is a Tuesday. I hope everyone's having a wonderful time so far. We're going to begin today's topic of the parable of the talents, okay? Now, you guys got to understand this. We're not talking about talents as like abilities of talents. We're going to tell you what this parable of talents is about. So, another week, another parable. Last week was the 10 virgins. This week is the parable of the talents. So once again, what's a parable? A parable is a story with lots of symbolism and allows us to understand really complex ideas and concepts. So it makes it easier more than anything else. Like the best example I can give you guys is love. Love is something that is unexplainable. It's a feeling, or it's a something, or I'm not sure. But people write poems about love. People write stories of what love is really like. Because it's so complex, all we can do is show examples of what love is like, right? And that's what a parable does. So today's parable is called the parable of the talents. So this is a story between an owner or a master and his servants, and the owner entrusts responsibility to the servants, and he gives them something called a talent. All right? So everyone, grab your drinks, get yourself ready. We're going to have a wonderful time talking about today's story of the parable of the talents. Okay, so let's get into the story of the parable of the talents. What happens? Super easy, simple story. There is a master, there is an owner, and he's going to go on a long journey. So he has these 3 servants. And with these 3 servants, he says, to each of you I will give and entrust with you some talents. Okay? So what is a talent? A talent is actually, it's a measure of weight. Right? So if we have talent, and what the master is giving these servants is gold. So a talent of gold is equal to like 20 years of wages. So you got to imagine this. Even if you only made like, let's just say you made like $50,000 a year. If you do 20 years, what's that? That's like $1 million. That's like $1 million. No, is that right? 50,000 times 10 is 500. Yeah, it's $1 million. So it's like giving you $1 million on the spot. But to the first servant, he gave 5 talents. So it's like $5 million. The second one was 2 talents, and the last servant was 1 talent according to their ability. So after a long time, the master comes back and he checks up on those servants to see, what did you do with these talents that I entrusted you with? So he goes to the first guy, 5 talents. And he says, Master, you gave me 5 talents, and I made you 5 more. And he's like, oh my goodness, wonderful servant. You know what? Come and share in your master's happiness. The next servant he goes to, he said, I gave you two talents. And the servant comes and says, Master, you gave me $2 million, and I made you 2 million more. And the master is so happy. He's like, oh my goodness, wonderful. That's so great. And finally gets to the last person, right? So the last servant has 1 talent, which is still 20 years of wages, okay? So this person with the 1 talent, what does he tell the master? He says, hey, dude, or it's not dude. Hey, master, you know what? I'm scared of you. Like, you're a scary guy. So what I did was I buried my money in the ground, and I brought it back up just for you. And you know what does the master do? The master begins to scold him heavily and says, get out, you worthless servant, where there'll be weeping and gnashing of teeth. And then what does he do next? He takes the 1 talent from that person and he gives it to the person who now has 10 talents, right? So that is a story of the parable of the talents. So we're like, oh, that's an interesting story. So what does this mean? What can we get from a story like this? What can we glean, right, from these? What kind of life lessons can we learn from a parable like this, right? A story of talents or bags and bags of money, $1 million, $2 million, $5 million. $5 million. Okay, either way, right? That's a reference from, what's that show called, the movie? Austin Powers, Dr. Evil, 1 billion. Either way, so let's go into life lessons. I'm going to teach you 3 things today of what we can glean from this story about the parable of the talents. First lesson, very important. Get what you deserve, not what you want. You're like, what? What do you mean? Get what you deserve, not what you want. Listen, we're going to take a look at the verse where the master talks about giving him these talents. And what does it say? Matthew 25:15, it says, he gave 5 to one, 2 to another, and 1 to another, to each according to their ability. Okay, and the one thing that guys, we have to understand this, why this is such an important thing for us to understand about giving or wanting only what you deserve and not what you want. Have you guys ever heard this term before? You're biting off more than you can chew, right? Or he bit off more than he can chew. What does that mean? It means that, like, say, you kind of took too much and you couldn't finish it all, right? It's the same as saying your eyes are bigger than your stomach. You're like, oh, I want to eat this, I want to eat this, I want to eat this. You order all this food, you could barely eat any of it. Why? Because your eyes are bigger than your stomach. What it's basically doing is, it's when people kind of misjudge themselves, right? They misjudge themselves, they're overconfident about themselves, and they're also kind of arrogant about themselves too, thinking that they deserve more than they actually deserve, right? Now, we have to really be careful when it comes to our own ability, and knowing our own ability is a very, very important thing. Why? One of the bigger problems that we might have is, can you imagine 5 million goes to the first servant, 2 million to the next, and then 1 million to you? You're like, what? And all you're doing is looking at what other people have, right? We're looking at what other people have, and what happens there is we don't realize that we are getting what we deserve. And it's trust me guys, it's way better. Let me give you an example. Okay? We all want to be owners of companies, right? We're like, oh, we want to make tons of money. I want to be an owner of a company. But the problem is, if you became an owner of a company right now, how many of you can operate the company properly to keep running? And the answer is probably 0. Or imagine you just became a lawyer. Fresh new lawyer, straight out of law school. And you get into this big company, and then the first assignment, the first case they give you is from their #1 richest client in a very complex case. It's on TV and everything. Do you want that burden? And the answer is no. You don't, you're biting off more than you can chew. You just started, right? Or what about this? What if you have a $100 million company that's about to go bankrupt, and the whole company's going to just be destroyed? 10,000 people are all going to lose their jobs, and they all look at you and they say, okay, make the decision for all of us. How many of us would actually really want that responsibility, right? You want what you can do. Right? And this is proper, getting what you deserve more than getting what you want. Because honestly, when it comes to getting what we want, it's like winning the lottery and winning 10,000 billion trillion dollars. And we would love that without working a single day. But what we know about people who win the lottery is over 90% of them actually what? They go bankrupt in the end. They don't know how to manage the money because they've never had that much money before. What we have to understand is, you need to want what you deserve. That's what you want to get. You don't want to want what you want. You want to get exactly what you deserve. Why? That is what you can handle. The problem is when you're staring at what other people have when they deserve it. Like honestly, imagine someone who's like the best worker, someone who sells like $10 billion in sales. Don't you think they deserve more when you only sold like $10? But you couldn't look at them and say, oh, why do they get $1 million? It's because they sold 10 billion, right? People should get what they deserve. So what we have to think to ourselves is, get what you deserve, not what you want, right? Get what you deserve, not what you, that means you have to know your ability, know what you want. Second thing we need to know is this. responsibility and effort. And this is something quite interesting because you're like, where did you get this from? Responsibility and effort. Where does that come from? We're going to take a look at a verse in Matthew 25:26 in this story. And in this story, it says, you know what the master says to this servant who had the one talent and didn't do anything with it? He says, wicked and lazy. You wicked and lazy servant, how dare you, right? And this is where we understand responsibility and effort, okay? Now, where did I get responsibility from? Responsibility is the same as wickedness, okay? It's like, what do you mean responsibility and wickedness are the same? Let me give an example of responsibility that leads to wickedness, right? Or not fulfilling your responsibility. There's a verse in Ezekiel 33, verse 6. And you know what it's about? It's about someone who's at a watchtower and all they're supposed to do, their only responsibility is to make sure that if the enemies come, that you blow the trumpet, and that's your responsibility. And it says here, if there's a watchman sees the sword coming and does not blow the trumpet and the people are not warned, and if someone dies, what happened? The blood will be on the watchman's hands, right? Because that's responsibility. All he has to do is watch, and then if he sees the people come in and he decides, I don't know if I should do that. That's your responsibility. If you don't do your responsibility, what happens is you put all the suffering onto other people. And this is what happens in life too, when we're not responsible. When we're not responsible with our family, with our school, with our work. When you're not responsible, what happens? Then it causes other people to suffer. I'm not responsible with my work at work. Then other people have to catch up for me. Other people have to stay up all night because I didn't do it, because I wasn't responsible. Right? And that's why when it says, you wicked and lazy servant, the first one is wickedness comes from what? Is you know that you're supposed to do, but you don't do it. That's why it's a wicked thing. You know you're supposed to blow the trumpet when you see people come in and someone dies because you didn't do it, even though you knew you were supposed to do it. So think about that in your head. Why is that wicked? Because doing something you know you're not supposed to do. Look at it at every level, right? Look at it at every level. Imagine I cheat on my wife. I know it's wrong. Then I know it's wrong and I do it. It's a wicked thing, right? So the first thing is responsibility, right? And especially in this story, this servant was responsible for the owner's money, right? And one of the things that you could look at is very easy for him to look at other people's money and devalue his money. Which is kind of really weird because, when you think about 20 years wage, is that small or big? It's huge. No one ever gets paid 20 years of wage at once, right? But here's the funny thing about human beings, if you think about this in your head. Human beings will go to a bubble tea place because it's buy one, get one free. Which means that if you go to buy one, get one free, how much money do you save? Like $5? Like you're saving like $5, right? Just to get a free bubble tea, and you go out of your way to go to that bubble tea place. Yet, here's the crazier part. You're gonna buy something really expensive. Super expensive stereo worth $1,000, and if you save $10 to go across, you have to drive somewhere else to save $10, you won't do it. Because it's only $10. But it's $10. Like if you're gonna go drive out to get a bubble tea to save $5, it doesn't make any sense. Human beings are so weird because when we look at how, the price of something is it's $1,000, so $5 is nothing. It's the wrong way of thinking. I know some people in America that will clip coupons for 50 cents, but they can get a cheaper stereo. They'll buy a car and you can go across town to get a stereo for $100 cheaper. But since the car is $25,000, the $200 doesn't mean much. That's the weirdness about people's minds, right? You have $1 million, which is crazy, but you're staring at someone else's $5 million. You're like, it's only $1 million. Yeah, it's $1 million. That's how crazy human beings are, right? Second thing we're talking about is laziness. Now, why is laziness here? Because we're talking about effort, responsibility and effort. Laziness is about a lack of effort. That's all it is. Because laziness means that you can do it, but you don't. That's what laziness is, right? Like for me, 2 mornings ago, I want to wake up and and my eyes open, but I can get up because I've been up for the last 15 minutes just staring at my ceiling, right? But go back to sleep. You can get up, but when you're too lazy, you just kind of fall back into what is most comfortable, right? There's an interesting verse in Matthew 25:27. This is how lazy this servant was with the 1 talent. You should have just put my money on deposit and you would have collected interest. What do you do? Like, what does it take for you? It takes more work for you to dig a hole in the ground, put the money in and cover the money, than for you to walk to the bank, put it in, and at least get interest for it. That's how lazy people are. You know what the crazier thing about human beings is that even when we're lazy, we're diligent in laziness. It's so weird. It's so weird, right? It's like some people don't want to wash their hands, and then they'll just turn the water on like they're washing their hands. And then they turn it off. And you're like, why don't you just wash your hands? But they're putting work into, because they don't want to do it, but they'll turn the water on. It's so weird. It's so weird if you think about it. People are diligent in their laziness, which is crazy when you think about it. But laziness brings loss and suffering. Like, for instance, if you're lazy in your tests, you'll pretend that you're studying. I don't get it. How do you pretend to study? Like, your books are open, you just kind of sit there and like play on your phone? Right? We're lazy in our tests, our studying. We're lazy at work. We're lazy with our relationships, and we don't put effort into it. And this is why our relationships, our work, and these things suffer, because not only because we're not responsible, but even when we can do it, we're lazy about it. Right? The second thing we learn from this is we got to be responsible and put in effort. Even a little bit. Just put the money in the bank. It's so easy. Third and final one. I call it the Robin Hood syndrome. Now, of course, when you looked at the title today, the title said Robin Hood with R-O-B-B, but it's like actually robbing someone. And I did that on purpose. It's a play of words. I know some people have already texted and said, hey, I think you spelled it wrong. It's like, no, it's a play of words. Okay, we're playing on some words here because Robin Hood actually robbed people. Okay? And what I'm going to talk about here is the Robin Hood syndrome. Okay? What is the Robin Hood syndrome? If you look back at Matthew 25, verse 28, it says, take the talent from him and give it to the one who has 10. And we're like, what? Why would you give it to the one who has 10? He's already got 10. Why would you give him more? It doesn't make any sense. Don't you want to at least split it up or something and give it to the person who has 5 or 4 and then some to the person who has 10? Why did you give it all to the person who already has 10? Like, Robin Hood syndrome is we steal from the rich and give to the poor. But here we look in this verse and it's kind of like, hey, guess what? If we look at that verse right now, that the end of the verse says, those who have will be given more, and those who don't have, even what they have will be taken away from them. It's like, what? And in our heads, we think it's wrong. We think it's wrong that this person who has nothing or didn't do anything with his $1 million, it's taken away, he's thrown out. And then you take that and give it to the richest person. We're like, that doesn't make any sense. Now, question is, why do we think that way? Why do we really think that way? Why? Number one is, for some odd reason in our heads, we think that rich people are bad and poor people are good. It's really weird. It's really, really weird. Oh, they're rich, so they must be corrupt. They must have stole it. They must have done this. And then the poor people are like this. Oh, poor people. Poor people are so poor. Oh, we need to give them something, right? And that's the way, it's so weird. That's the way we think. It's this total Robin Hood syndrome. But you got to think about this. What if you were someone who was rich, but you worked so hard to make that money? Or if you were rich and you gave it to your children and someone steals it from your children? It's still something you work for, and you have a choice to give it to whoever you want. It's true, right? Not all rich people are corrupt. Not all poor people are good either. Right? It's weird if you think this way. There are good, righteous people. Right? Do you think in this situation that is talking about all these wicked people? Like, oh, no, obviously he's talking about this person who has 10 talents is actually very, very good. Made the master really, really happy, more than anyone else. If you look at Proverbs 19:17, the reason I bring this verse up is really interesting because it says, he who has pity on the poor lends to the Lord, and he will pay back what he has given. Right? It's like, oh, wow, the poor people, and I give them money. Right? And then you get paid back. The Lord will pay you back for all your righteousness and giving to the poor. Here's the thing that's kind of interesting. The reason I bring this up is because people have to voluntarily give to the poor, right? How can it be considered righteousness if someone takes it from you? It's not righteousness. Righteousness is when I have more and I give to others, and that is considered righteousness. And that's the weird thing here, because you have to be willing to give. Willing to. So what does this have to do with this, like, whoever has will be given more? Why? Because when we read the entire Bible, one of the biggest things that we have to understand is this. Let me give you this situation. If you have two people in your company, okay, and they're both salespeople, one person sells $10 billion and the other person sells $10, okay? Now, if there's a time for a big bonus, who are you going to give it to? You're going to give it $10 million. Like, there's like no question about it. This person just made me so much money, I'm going to reward them more. But we're not going to be like this. Oh, poor people, only $10. Oh, you know what? Let me give you the $10,000 bonus for making me $10. But actually, it's less than that because I have to still pay you an hourly wage. It's crazy, right? When you think about it too, even in relationships, who do you give more to? The people you hate? The people that don't do anything for you, people who are lazy in the relationship, people who are not responsible with the relationship, people don't even, like, think about it. If it's your child and some strange child out there, who are you going to give the candy to? Your own child. And when the second candy comes, you're not going to be like, oh, look at that poor strange kid that's walking around. I don't know them. Maybe I should give them a candy. You never think that. You keep giving it to your own son. And you give more and more and more. Even if there's 10,000 kids out there, because it's your son, we give it to our children, right? If it's my wife and I love my wife, it's not like I'm going to be like buying her a meal today and then tomorrow's like, hey, sorry, honey, tomorrow I'm going to find some poor person on the street. I'm going to buy them a meal. We're going to eat together. You don't do that. You do it every day with the person that you love, right? If you were the boss, you give it to someone who deserves it, is the person who did something, who's working really hard. He's doing their responsibility, puts in their effort. And it's the same as a relationship. In relationships, you give more to the person who puts more into the relationship. To the person who is trying and putting more effort into the relationship with you. It's normal, right? But somehow in our heads, we become lazy and wicked because we expect to get more than we deserve, right? I didn't do anything, but you still got to pay me $55,000 an hour. Like, why would I do that? You didn't do anything for me. It's like, oh, well, that sounds kind of mean. It's not mean. It's normal. It's a regular thing, right? It brings new meaning when you put the when it comes down to love, right? It'll give new meaning to Matthew chapter 25:29, because Matthew chapter 25:29 says, "For everyone who has will be given, and he will have abundance. But for him who does not have, even what he has will be taken away," right? If someone is putting 100% into the relationship as a friend, aren't you going to give back 100%? And then you have the other person never answers your text, never really says hi to you, never really talks to you, doesn't put anything into that friendship, puts nothing into the relationship. Are you going to be like, oh yeah, you know what, but at least we'll stay for... No, sometimes you'll even drop them as a friend. Even what they have will be taken away. And you'll give it to who? You'll put more attention onto the person who is that much more into the relationship. That's what life is. Life is, it's all about love. And that's why when you look at Matthew 25:29, it's true when it comes to love. Remember, this is just a parable. It's not talking about business, right? But it's even true in business. No one gives extra bonuses and money to the person who's the worst seller, the person who doesn't do anything in the job. And people are the same thing when it comes to relationships. We invest in those who invest in the relationship. We invest in family. We invest in all these different things for those who invest in this is what is normal when it comes to love. What does it mean to give to the poor? It means that even though I'm not receiving love from them, out of my willing heart, I will give to them. Out of my willing heart. Of all the abundance I keep getting, I will choose to willingly do this and help other people. Right? That's what you'd call true charity, right? True like when you what do you call it? A volunteer? Yeah, that's what it truly is when you do it out of your own volition because you really want to do it. And that's what has to change too when we ourselves understanding about this story of the talents. Now, there's like 3 more things that I have for this story, but we only have enough time for just these 3 points, and I hope it kind of gets your minds thinking about, what are the talents that have been given to me? Not talents, like things that have been given to you. It could even be a talent, right? It could even be money. It could even be something that, like, wow, why do I deserve this? And you get that, and what do you do with it next becomes the most important thing, right? 3 things. Number 1, get what you deserve, not what you want, right? So stop looking at other people's stuff. Second thing is be responsible and put in effort. And the last one is you got to get rid of your Robin Hood syndrome, right? You got to get rid of that Robin Hood syndrome. Okay, so I hope that this helps you guys out today for today's talk about the parable of the talents. I hope you guys had a wonderful time, and that's going to bring us into a time of question and answer. So I'll give you guys about a couple seconds to start working on those questions while I have a sip of my drink. Oh, by the way, it's not raining. It's just the backdrop. The backdrop. We're doing. What do you call it? Animated backdrops. So sometimes you're going to see things moving in the background, but it's all green screen. Yeah, here, this is not real. Hey, actually, can you guys turn off the green screen for a second? No, you can't, right? Can you? Is it off now? See, this is what it really is, guys. That's the trick. Yeah. See, I'm just like a loser. I'm not really at these cafes and nice places. Okay, put it back before I feel weird. Okay, so let's go into the questions of the day. Let's take a look at the questions. Okay, first question is from Sally in KL. Sally in KL says, how can I know my ability and not take more than I can handle? Okay, so this is a very, very good question, is because in order for you not to take more than you can handle, you do need to know your ability. And this is why the best thing to do is, like, it's like that the idioms we used in the past, right? The idioms I used was, don't bite off more than you can chew, and your eyes are bigger than your stomach. Which basically means that only take bits and pieces and work your way up, instead of working your way up here and then work your way down. Right? You want to build yourself up and try to check yourself is how much can I handle? Like, what is my level right now? So you have to always kind of push yourself and test your limits for a little bit here and there, but it's better to bite a little bit at a time, get yourself higher and higher until you feel like, oh, okay, this is a little bit too much for me. But you want to do it in this way more than anything else, okay? So thanks, Sally, for that question. You don't want to take more than you can handle, so know your ability by taking it small chunks at a time, a little bit more, and you'll be able to know your abilities a lot better, okay? Let's go to the next question. All the way over there in Singapore, it is Priscilla. Priscilla in Singapore is asking, I think I'm just naturally more lazy than others. I think everyone thinks that. No, everyone doesn't think that you're more lazy than everyone else, but everyone thinks of themselves as we're a little bit more lazier than others, right? And I'm not sure how I can make myself more diligent. Yeah. So everything that we do, one of the reasons why people don't really take action or become diligent is because a lot of times you don't plan what you're going to do. Now, what does that mean, you don't plan what you're going to do? Not planning what you're going to do basically means that if I want to do something, like let's just say that I want to make my first YouTube video, right? But then a lot of people will go online and say, hey, what's the most important thing when you start a YouTube channel? Like, oh, it's your first 30 videos. And what's going to happen? Oh my gosh, 30 videos. I don't have enough ideas for 30 videos. Oh, what do I do, right? It's just too much. And then you take this big chunk and you don't put them into anything actionable, right? It's better to take it down and say, okay, my first 30 videos are important, which means I got to start with video number 1. So what are some actionable things I can do? Number 1 is, let's think of my idea. What kind of video do I want to make, right? So that's actionable. So you sit down, set a timer for 30 minutes, and you just start writing down what you can do, right? What kind of video you want to make, right? Then I was like, okay, after I figure this out, what's my next action item? My next action item is going to be, where am I going to do it, right? And then the third action might be just film it. And what we do is we take these big ideas or the big things that we want and we break them down into very small, actionable items, right? And when you do it like this, it's actually a lot easier because you're not thinking so big. Like, have you ever thought, this is what life is like. I'll give you the best example. Imagine when you're born, right? You're a newborn baby, and like God comes to you and he shows you like a mountain of food and says, you will eat this. And you'd be like, what? You look at this, it's a mountain of food. You wouldn't even want to start like, God, there's no way I can do this. This is way too big for me. But instead, what happens? Instead, it doesn't show you the mountain of food you're going to eat in your lifetime. It is, hey, breakfast. Oh, breakfast? Oh yeah, I'm hungry. And you eat your breakfast. Hey, oh, you hungry? Yeah. Lunch. Oh, thank God for lunch. And what happens is we don't even get 3 meals at a time. We always get 1 meal at a time, right? And that's why we never think about, imagine if you were shown how much food you'd eat in your entire lifetime. It's too overwhelming. And that's why we break it down into actionable items of, what should I eat for breakfast? Hey, what's for lunch? It doesn't matter. I haven't had breakfast yet, right? So it's something that we really have to kind of put into consideration, is break things down into small parts. Cool. Thank you, Priscilla, all the way over there in Singapore. So let's go over to Noel in Jakarta, which is Indonesia. Noel. Okay, Noel. How do we know how much effort we should put to be considered responsible? Being responsible is not about the effort. Effort and responsibility they're tied to each other, but they're not the same. Being responsible is like this. My responsibility could be for these talks that I do. Mine is to bring the mic here, get a drink, and set up this table. Like, this is my responsibility. Okay? So if this is my responsibility, then what is my responsibility is just this. Once I do it, my responsibility is done. Okay? Now, effort is tied to it. Because if I put tons of effort into it, what might I do? I might tape things down so it's done perfectly, and I might get another box just for my phone, another cup holder here. I'm putting in tons of effort. I'll get like a better stand or whatever it is, or I'll have everything marked on the ground, and that's a lot of effort that I put in to do the same responsibility, right? So being responsible, the first part about this is knowing that that's something that you should do. You know you should do it. Like, I have to set up this table. If that is my responsibility, I know it, I do it, right? And of course, it could look like this, right? It could look like totally like all messed up like this. But I still did it, right? I still did it. That's my responsibility, is to bring the table and put all the stuff on the table. The effort now is involved is to put everything in a place that looks good for the camera, setting everything so that it looks exactly straight, that I'm centered, right? My responsibility is to wear like a pink shirt today. But the effort would probably be like if I have chocolate stains all over, plus, and it just, if I have stains all over my shirt, I didn't put any effort in. Did I do my responsibility? Absolutely. My responsibility is to wear a shirt, the pink shirt. But I didn't put a lot of effort in, then I was careless, and then all of a sudden I spilled everything all over my shirt, right? So you want to be able to split the two. Responsible is just getting what you're supposed to be getting done. And then the effort will determine how much better that responsibility looks and how much effort you put in to make it look really well, okay? Thank you, Noel, for that awesome question. Let's move over to the Philippines. It's, how do you pronounce this? Jerica. Jerica? Jerry, I don't know. I'm going to say Jerica. Okay, I'm assuming it's Jerica. Okay. Jerica is, how will you know if it's laziness or it's just not motivated? Is there even a difference between the two? Laziness, if you're unmotivated, you become lazy. But you can still be motivated and be lazy. So yeah, if you're not motivated, it can lead to laziness. Because when you're not motivated, you're like, oh, I don't want to do this. Oh, why? It's like I just started working out again. It's like today was day, I started on the 15th. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Today's day 8 for me. So I've been 8 days straight, right? And soon I will lose motivation. I will. I'm going to lose motivation. And I'm either going to be very responsible and keep going and put in lots of effort, even though I don't feel like it. But the not being motivated could lead to laziness. But laziness itself too is you can still be motivated and not do it, because that's straight up laziness, right? Right? So they are being unmotivated can lead to laziness, but not all the time. Because there are people who are unmotivated, but they push themselves and they are responsible and they put in tons of effort that even though they're not motivated, they'll still do it. And then there's those that if you're unmotivated, it'll lead to laziness, right? Now, and then laziness itself is, you could do it, but you don't. You could do it, right? So it could stem from laziness. It could stem from being bored, or it could stem from it's too hard or difficult. Tons of reason for laziness, but laziness usually sets in is when you kind of let yourself go. And I would say that a lot of it comes from also like now thinking that you're not responsible for it anyway, so you become irresponsible, right? And that leads to laziness. There's tons of reasons that leads to laziness too. Yeah, but you can be unmotivated and still be not lazy, and you can still do the things you want to do. It just you have to remotivate, or you have to just push yourself to do it. And I know some people that are like that too. All right, thank you. Good question from Jerica. Let's move over to last question of the day. This is Aaron in Japan. Aaron in Japan. Is there a healthy way to evaluate your ability? Should we calculate based on experience, results, or something else? It really depends on what it is too, right? Because there are some things that take no cognitive energy, right? So some things do take you a lot of thinking. Like for instance, imagine it's me that I do a lot of counseling. I counsel people. How would you evaluate counseling? It's hard because I couldn't evaluate it on my past experience because every experience is different, right? Sometimes you have to base it on a result, depending on how much cognitive power you need to put into it. If it's something else, just like every day, just setting up this table, doesn't take much brains. I just got to do it, right? So what's a healthy way to evaluate this ability of doing this? It's easy. Just see how many days in a row I've actually done it, right? What's my streak? When it comes to evaluating other parts of your abilities, you could comparing it to your past is really good, because then you can see growth of yourself, or growth or maybe a decline, right? Because in the past, if you're doing really, really well, and then you're doing better and better and better, and you look back at your past, you can evaluate and say, oh, that makes sense, right? And then if you look back at the past and you were like this, and then all of a sudden you dropped, then you'll be able to look and say, oh, wow, okay, something must have happened at that time that made me not get motivated, right? So there are multiple different ways to do it, but you need to kind of sit down and assess it for yourself, right? Something like, for instance, when it comes to me, I'm a person of faith. How would I evaluate prayer? How good my prayer was? Would I base it on a feeling? No, because sometimes my feelings are wrong, right? I know that sometimes God is there, but sometimes if I don't feel Him, doesn't mean He's not there. But does that mean it's a bad prayer because I didn't feel it? I don't know if I could base it on just my feeling itself, right? So that's why we have to kind of sit down and base it on past experiences, like you said. Sometimes it has to be results oriented. Some of it, for instance, when it comes to counseling, I think the most important part is, did the person get helped or not? For me, it would be a very big indicator. It wouldn't be on my answer hey, how was your counseling session this week? It was really good because I spoke really well. What would that have to do with how good my counseling ability was, right? So it would all depend on what part you're looking at. Some things are just mechanical, and you've got to base it just on a result because it's very, very mechanical. Something is based on cognitive, so you're thinking about it and trying to solve it, and you'd have to base it on how it was resolved, right? So, and some other things, you have to base it on your prior experiences and comparing it to yourself in the past, right? How much better you've become. So there are a lot of different ways to do it, and it really depends on what you are evaluating, which makes a big difference, right? Is it mechanical? Is it cognitive, right? Is it something that you have no control of, right? Because there are some things you have no control of, like people. Like you can have an assignment, you did perfectly on it, but then 3 of your other team project players didn't do what they're supposed to do. So you got a D. Does that mean you've done wrong? It's hard because it's out of your control, right? So there are a lot of different things you have to look at, but you have to look at yourself fairly too. And sometimes you'll need someone who you trust, like a mentor or someone who can help you evaluate those things too, okay? All right, everyone. That's thank you so much for that question, Aaron, all the way over there in Japan. Hope you guys had a wonderful time today on the Taco Tuesday. It's the 8th edition today. Hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful Tuesday night. Those of you who are joining us for the first time on Facebook, go ahead and like. And if you want to hear more of these Taco Tuesdays, we've had 8 Taco Tuesdays, probably like 20 Lockdown Tuesdays, plus another 5 Bread Talks. We have all of them on our YouTube channel, Espresso with Sky. So go ahead and subscribe and hit the notification bell. Also, for those of you who would like to support this ministry, go ahead and click on the link for Patreon. You can support us. And also, this Saturday, 1 p.m., we have group Bible lessons, small groups, so you guys can get better ideas or learn more deeply. It's open to everyone, so just come on in, fill in the sign-up form, and we'll email you the Zoom link. So everyone, have a wonderful Tuesday, and we'll see you guys again either on Thursday for Bubble Talk, Saturday for Bible study, or next week for the Bible. Next week for Taco Tuesday, 9th edition. All right, everyone, have a wonderful Tuesday. Bye-bye.